Okay, welcome back to the third run of my playthrough of all the presets in Bias FX2 Professional Edition. Today we're going through the rock category. You guys already know what I'm here for. I'm just going to jump right into it. First preset is the 90-foot walking man? 90s walking man? I'm not sure. Maybe it's a reference. You guys tell me. Let's go straight into it. We have a gate drive. We have a JCM800 simulation. Celestion T75s. We have a mod. It looks like a chorus, I think it is. I'm correct. It is a chorus, quite intense chorus, in fact. Very deep, very high intensity, high level, and a high rate-ish. And we've got a reverb and a delay on the end. Let's have a look. Let's play some arpeggios stuff. You know what, for a rhythm tone, I really like that. It has such a palpable sound to it. It's easily identifiable. I wouldn't say that it's so identifiable that you can't help but think of the preset, or think, you know, oh, this came from that program I heard one time in a video by Van Lucia. But it's definitely identifiable enough to be able to make your song feel unique and quite thought about. So this is a preset, I reckon, that's designed to inspire and hopefully designed to, you know, guide your songwriting decisions. There's a wire down the front that's bypassed, but I won't play with that. Given that I only have my mouse, I will get a foot controllers to be able to play with this a bit further. But let's just play some lead lines. I'm going to switch to my neck pickup and roll off the top a little bit. Nice. Certainly no complaints here. Okay, let's get back to the middle pickup and move on. We have Angry Goddess. Okay, gate drive, JM48, EQ, slight mid slice? Yeah, just it's bumped down. And we have V30s, SM57 is slightly off axis, so we can expect something less harsh. Probably a little bit more on the warm side. Yep, reverb and delay. Honestly, that's a little drier than I expected, but I'm all for it. The reverb and delay is really evocative. It really puts my mind into the space of thinking, yeah, this is a chunky rhythm tone. And I'm sure I could do some lead stuff with it as well. I'm all for it. I love it. Okay, let's move on. Back to 80s. Gate, plexiglass, V2, greenback 25s. There's an EQ here. What's it doing? Slight mid boost, treble boost, bass roll off, and we have a delay. Okay, so we can expect something somewhat a bit more ambient. Yeah, especially with that time and that mix value, we're looking at something that's a bit more like a slapback delay. So let's have a look. Interesting. So it almost has like a room verb kind of sound to it. I'm not against it. It reminds me of a very reverberant room, which is very good for this kind of stuff. I'm usually the kind of person who steps away from mix ready or any of those, you know, one-off tools, but I'm seeing more and more that the higher gain presets in Bias FX2 are actually really good at giving you a tone that you could feasibly see through to the end of the recording, if not midway through the mix stage. The delay, honestly, that's to taste, but I think it's a really good guide tone to go by. So I certainly don't have any problems with how this preset's been laid out. Usually, I'm a personal fan of having fairly dry presets when I set things up, because reverbs and delays, I feel, are more taste and ambience tools rather than tone shaping, but this might sway my opinion. It's actually quite nice for creating the vibe of this sound. I mean, hey, back to the 80s. I was not an 80s kid, so somebody else is going to have to tell me whether or not that is evocative of the 80s. Be like Slash. Oh, now I have to. Yeah, that's pretty much what I heard on the record. I mean, a lot of the treble is gone from the tone. Let's investigate why. We've got quite a high gain in this upper amp, and still quite a high gain in the lower amp, but the upper one has slightly modified EQ settings to roll off a bit of that bass. And that would make a lot of sense. Look at where our mics have been placed. We've got these rolled off right to the edge. If we brought these in closer, our treble is back. But it's clearly been placed on the edge for a reason. And I think it's for that slightly muted, almost neck pickup vibe. And like, note that I'm only using my Ormsby in the middle pickup for a lot of these presets. Whenever I switch to the neck pickup, I'm telling you guys. So otherwise, for all intents and purposes, assume that I'm on my middle pickup, or rather in the middle position between the pickups. And I'm certainly seeing that this is almost trying to force the sound into that neck pickup sound, which is really quite cool. Reverb, mixer, there's nothing particularly happening here. Slight left and right just to give a bit of ambience. We're seeing that there's bypassed boost, mod, chorus, and tremolo. Obviously these, I don't think these are all meant to be activated at once, but they certainly give you lots of possibilities. I'm not going to go through them, mainly because I think we'd be here for the next 2 years just investigating all the various sounds of Guns N' Roses. Boulevard of Broken Days. Just playing something derivative, so it doesn't necessarily get me copyright infringed, but let's have a look. That tremolo is doing something really, really nice for the sound here. Even if I take that off, still an incredibly usable tone that clearly has a very evocative sound to it. There's a drive that's been bypassed here, just I'm guessing for that greater intensity. There's a delay. This is all going through Marshall amp head and Celestion V30s again, quite far off the edge again. So that delay is probably just going to give us a nice little echo. Okay, moving on. British Dirt. Let's have a look. Gate, drive, plexiglass, reverb, greenback 25s, and everything's pretty bright. And the mixer says slightly panned left and right, nothing too intense. So this is really probably going to be quite straightforward. awesome. I genuinely really like that sound. It's really, really, I mean, for want of a better word, basic, but basic isn't bad. It's certainly the kind of sound that whenever someone tells me rock, that's usually the kind of tone that I think of. You know, it has that like slightly pared back but still incredibly gritty sound, and it's gainy enough for it to not be metal but also clearly not pop. It's there. Classic crunch. Gate, boost, splitter. We have 2 different amps this time around. That makes a change. Overdriven Lux Verb. So I'm guessing that's a Fender Deluxe. And an overdriven JM45, good old Marshall. Going to Celestin V30s, the Marshall being quite darker. And the EQ has a slight treble boost and a bass roll-off with quite a low, but quite an ambient, quite an ambient reverb, but there's not very much of it in the tone. Alright, let's have a look at what this is. Ooh, cool. Okay. Something I'm noticing with a lot of these presets is that even though a lot of them, for want of a better word, do sound kinda samey, they definitely have a specific character which is inherent to each preset, which is really, really great, because when I go ahead and start looking at presets in a new program, or when I start looking for inspiration, really all I'm really looking for is something that has a distinctive enough sound that I can identify it later on, or at the very least, if it is going to be quite distinctive, that it's not just pigeonholing itself into one specific song, vibe, or anything like that. It just gets an approximation of the sound, which gives me the creative freedom to be able to do whatever I want with it. I'm a fan of this because it's generic as hell, but that's exactly what I want out of a tone that's literally labeled classic crunch. Love it. Alright. Crying Poorly. See, this is where I feel like my musical education in terms of like contemporary music history is a little lacking, because I know these are references and it's killing me that I don't know what these references are towards. So you guys are gonna have to tell me what they are. Gate, drive, splitting into, again, our Fender Deluxe Verb, Marshall, and Greenback 25s, Celestin V30s, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a bypass reverb in the middle, probably for solo purposes, but that's pretty straightforward. Let's give it a try. You can hear the massive difference between classic crunch and Crying Poorly already. There's a bit more bass in the sound, there's a bit more depth and warmth to it. Seems like it suits a solo more. Let me just hit up that reverb. Yeah, that's great. And it has such a nice biting tone without being necessarily piercing, as a lot of other amp sims are. I'm a fan. Dual Train. We have an Octave, which I guess that's where the dual would be coming from. Marshall 69, Green 25s, and we've got a gate comp reverb delay. This is cool. I'm guessing that Octave is going to be heaps of fun. Yeah, I mean, that just reminds me of the Muse. And I'm going to stop there before copyright infringement. But I think this is really cool. Like, it has a very, very clear vibe to it. And you can also grab this and turn down the high octave if you want. You can turn up the sub octave. You can make it drier or wetter according to the sound. I'm a fan. If you chuck the gate on, clears up the sound. Chuck the compressor on, gives it a bit more intensity for if you want to do melodic playing. Tell you what, I will give it credit for not only that sustain, but also not freaking out at the low notes. That was a low A, practically, that's, 5th fret on a bass guitar, 1st string. So that's very, very effing low. But it held its own pretty well in a lot of these amp sims and a lot of these pitch uppy-downy plugins, or in this case, pedal simulation. They freak out, you get a lot of glitching, and that was remarkably clean. I'm a fan. Let's move on. Morelos Rage. Again, something derivative so I don't get sued. It's pretty cool. It's a bit on the darker side. I didn't really expect that. I mean, maybe it could suit the upper playing. I'm a fan, generally, of the sound anyway. We've got, just gonna confirm that, yeah, it's quite dark. Even if I move that in a little bit, just to open it up. There we go, cleans up the sound quite nicely. Simple tweaks. I don't need an EQ pedal, I just need to move my mic around. Pitch filter for that classic wah. We've got a harmony pedal here, looks like it's based off the Digitech Whammy. We've got, looks like a mod pedal of some kind. It's a tremolo, it appears. Quite intense, and we've also got analog delay, intensity and speed here, looks like some sort of flanger or phaser, and we've got a mid boost in this EQ that's been bypassed. Again, an incredibly versatile preset in and of itself. We could spend another 2 years just looking at just that preset. Okay, Orange Farm. Well, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. I just expect good old grit. Yeah. Yep, really straightforward. There's a flanger on there, and again, there's another mod pedal for us to play with. Overdriven Reverb icon. Well, this is really straightforward. What have we got here? Gate, drive, overdriven, Fender Deluxe, reverb, Celestion V30s, reverb. Again, I just think this is going to be a fairly generic sound. The darker side, but I can't really complain. It's definitely quite nice for that. Let's just move on. Phased Plexi on steroids. Gate mod, delay, boost, plexiglass, greenback 25s, reverb. Again, seems like it's going to be a fairly heavily affected pedal preset. range of sounds is quite available there. Again, it's just its own thing. I certainly don't mind it. I can see quite a lot of uses for that. Pure Plexi, we're getting closer to the end there, we're in the final third. Gate boost, plexiglass, greenback 25s, reverb. Again, seems to be quite straightforward. Gotta change a chord so I don't get sued. Again, it just does its thing. It's a Marshall. Yep, certainly not against it. Does its own thing. Great. A lot of these sounds, as I said earlier, are quite samey, but it still is going to suit somebody's songwriting style, and you don't have to spend all your time going through every preset. That's why I'm doing it. Just pick a sound and it'll most likely work for you. That's what I'm getting from all of this. Comp Drive, Vox Drive, we have a British 30, probably just another Vox speaker, a delay and a reverb. Seems to be quite straightforward. Quite heavy enough and not quite metal enough for that particular riff, but we'll save that for the next video, I think, where we can explore the metal category. But I quite like that one too. Skyline Drive mod. Which mod is this? It's a cloner. Maybe it's an ensemble or a doubler pedal. Plexiglass, greenback 25s, reverb, delay. What have we got here? That's pretty cool. Let's just take off the cloner for a second, see what it originally drive-wise would sound like. Very straightforward, but if we chuck on that cloner, all of a sudden gives it a really nice roundness to the tone. I certainly don't mind it. It's got really definitive tone to it, and it just does its job. I like it. Skyline Slippery When Wet is the next plugin, and it looks really straightforward. Professional wah unit. Oh, it's an auto wah, right. Drive, Vox Drive, reverb, British 30. Seems quite straightforward. Feels less like a wah, more of a quack, but that could just be the parameters of the wah. I'm less of a fan of this particular sound, but that may be also because I don't use a wah a lot at all. Solo time! Okay, well now then I have to play solos. Yeah, awesome. So heavily affected, but not a bad thing. gate, drive, JCM 800s, delay, reverb. Oops, absolutely deleted that preset, or that pedal. Celestion T75s, V30s, EQ, and mixer. By the way, if you do accidentally do something like that, just reload. Just reload the preset, and you'll be fine. Yep. And it's back. Everything's there. Anyway, last two, Yeti. We have a gate comp Soldano, I think? I might be wrong. I might be identifying that one wrong. Celestion T75s, EQ, what's the EQ doing? Has a slight mid boost, or just sort of like mid treble. And reverb, we've got two mods and a delay that are bypassed. We might play with that. Very much on the high gain end of things, and I certainly don't mind it. I think for higher gain than this, I'd be just going straight to the metal category, but I can see why it's on the end point of the various rock presets. We're getting really into the heavy fuzz end of things, and I certainly don't mind the sound. Anyway, certainly last and not least, we have Young Guns. This looks actually quite straightforward in comparison. Pitch filter and a comp down the top is bypassed, so we can engage them if we want. We've got our standard TS808 gain, Celestion V30, slightly darker. Wow, quite a scoop in those mids. Delay and reverb. Let's have a look. Love it, really straightforward. That delay would obviously be really good with a solo and as with this compressor. Awesome. Really, really great. Okay, well, let me just grab something that's less noisy. Great. Thank you very much for joining me for that. I really enjoy doing all of these preset playthroughs, mostly because I get to discover the program anew as well. I rarely go through every single preset, mostly because I just pick one and roll with it. Or, more commonly these days, I just make my own presets. And again, if you guys feel like you're not sure how to do that, whether it be with this program or with other amp sims, stick around to the end of the series where I show you guys a tried and true method, a methodology, if you will, for being able to build your dream tone, the sound that you've heard in your head, and just being able to think analytically and critically about what you want your instrument to sound like, or rather what you want it to sound like on the record, thinking endpoint versus this beginning stage when you're just crafting what you're going to be playing. So thanks again very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you guys for the next video.